This election is the most important election in the history of the United States. I've been saying it for over a year now. We have to do this right, and we have to get both sides together.
Hey guys, welcome back. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee or a beer, and buckle up, because BIX WEIR from Road to Ruta is back, and we are going to break down the Bush, Clinton, Rothschild crime families, and so much more. BIX, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. It's kind of hard to do the beer at 9 o'clock in the morning, though.
Well, yeah, as we record this, I have a cup of coffee, but I would suspect that many of our listeners take a break at night and sit back, settle in, and listen to some BIX. And that's a good time to have a beer, right?
Well, I've been known to, crack a beer at 9 o'clock on certain occasions, so what do you do?
Yeah, crack a beer, sit back and relax, guys, because this is going to be a good one. And BIX, I want to start with a truth bomb coming from the Saudis. Of course, I wrote about this just the other night at SGT Report. The Saudis have turned on the neocons. The U.S., they say, blew up the World Trade Center to create the war on terror. You guys can read that over at sgtreport.com. But BIX, we've been waiting a long time for this, 5,368 days to be exact. It's been 14 years, 8 months, and 12 days since the neocon Zionist monsters in the United States, along with their partners in crime, the Saudis and the Israeli Mossad, orchestrated the 9/11 false flag operation. And I now want to tie in that event with the Clintons and the Rothschilds. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Do you remember that famous soundbite from Bill Clinton in which he was heckled in Minneapolis by some 9/11 truthers who said 9/11 was an inside job, and his response was,
"An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?"
You remember that, BIX?
I do, and luckily even Bill Clinton is being exposed for the unbelievable evil guy that he is.
Well, he sure is, and I don't think you or any of our listeners would deny the fact that the Rockefeller-Rothschild cabal is in large part running the globe. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I agree, but I do believe that we are fighting them and we are going to take it back, and I think we are winning that battle.
I just did an interview with Harley Schlanger the other day in which Harley and I were talking about the 28 pages implicating the Saudis, but of course never mentioning the Mossad or Israeli involvement in 9/11. And Harley said the problem with throwing anyone under the bus, like the Saudis in this case, is that
when you throw someone under the bus, you always face the possibility that they'll come out and tell the truth. Now, I don't know if that'll happen, but as you know, the other part of this that's crucial is that we're talking about continuing policy. The Saudis and Israelis are totally joined at the hip.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
And now we see the Saudis, through their media, their government-controlled media and press, saying the United States orchestrated 9/11 to spark the war on terror. So here's the tie-in to the Clintons and why it's so important. Hillary Clinton is running for president, and as you say, the bad guys want her in the office. And the Rothschilds just held a $100,000 per head fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. Could there be a better example of oligarchs than the Clintons, the Bushes, and their puppet masters, the Rothschilds?
Well, this is the big dilemma that lies directly ahead of us. Now, we know we're going to go through a banking crash. Who do we want? We're going to have to turn to our government. That's my final conclusion is, yeah, everybody wants to be free, but when this system is taken down, it leaves us with nothing. And when people get desperate, they always turn to their government. That's going to be the big question is, what government will we be turning to? Will we be turning to someone like Hillary Clinton, who runs the game for the Rothschilds and lose all our freedoms and totally get basically taken over by these bad guys? Or will we have someone else there, someone else as president and someone else, many other people in our government that we can turn to for help that will give us real help and be a real kind of guiding light for us going forward, because it's going to be really, really difficult going after the crash going forward.
Well, as we look at what's going on in the current political landscape as it relates to the 2016 race for the White House, we can see people who don't even understand what you and I were just speaking about. They don't even know 9/11 was a false flag operation, but they're so fed up with the criminality and corruption in Washington, D.C., that they despise Hillary. Some on the left, everyone on the right, and we see all this support for Trump, and we see all this support for Bernie Sanders, and we know, as you've written, the bad guy's choice for U.S. president is Hillary Clinton. So, are they going to actually get that criminal who belongs in prison into the White House by stealing the election?
Well, I'll take it one step further. I think we need to unite the Trump people and the Sanders people. I mean, these are the two extremes of both parties, and the only way to move forward is united as one against the common criminal, against Clintons and against the banking system that's going to be in shambles by election time. I mean, truthfully, when you think about it, if we get to the elections and there's an economic chaos going on, they're not going to elect Trump. And it just, there'll be so much anger towards bankers and rich people. I would say it's not even Clinton either. I think it would be Bernie Sanders. Now, on the flip side, you have Venezuela. That is a great example of what happens when, the more extreme part of Bernie's policies get implemented. We are not a country, we're not a socialist country, and we're not even a democracy. We're a republic where the individual rights are supposed to be more overpowering than the right of the majority. I've been screaming this for so long. We have to come together, or you're going to see the other side of the equation in complete revolution. If Trump gets in, you can see more than half the country going into revolution mode. If Sanders gets in, it's the same thing. We have to bring these guys together so that they run on the same ticket. Trump in charge of negotiating contracts and getting the economy going, and Sanders in charge of taking care of the people and reallocating money and making sure that the little people are spoken for. So yes, it's so important. This election is the most important election in the history of the United States. I've been saying it for over a year now. We have to do this right, and we have to get both sides together.
When Ron Paul was running for president and he had more support from active military than all of the other Republican candidates combined, and of course, we were huge supporters here and did multiple videos about Ron Paul, met him in person on 2 occasions here. We spoke a lot about the fact that the establishment was stealing the election from Ron Paul, but the people weren't paying attention. The populace of the United States wasn't paying attention. They didn't really care. They weren't watching Ron Paul. Just those of us who were in tune with trying to save the nation, criminality and things of that nature, we were watching it. But most of that theft and criminality by the GOP was lost on the public at large. But this time, people are paying attention, Bix, and I think that's the sea change. And the other sea change is world leaders know what happened on 9/11. Do you think for a minute Putin doesn't know exactly what happened on 9/11, given his intelligence, given the fact that now the Saudis themselves are pointing the finger at the United States? This is a gigantic sea change, Bix, because 9/11, if that is blown wide open and the people actually pay attention, there will be a tipping point towards revolution and taking Washington, D.C. back from the bad guys.
I agree 100%. And from my Road to Ruta work, if you go back into the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston documents, the Road to Ruta is all about this comic that came out in 1981. They redid it in 2007, and it was exactly the same. They just updated it except for one thing. In the 1981 version, Ruta was writing economic formulas in the sand. In the 2007 version, all those formulas are gone, and all is written in the sand is 11 plus 9 with the Islamic crescent in it. It is my contention that the 9/11 event, which obviously was not 19 hijackers, but it's my contention that that is what turned the good guys against the bad guys, and is going to force the bad guys out of the United States and out of world domination that they have right now. And through this process of destroying the currency and giving the people a choice of where to go from there, that's what's kind of instigated it, was the 9/11 attacks, and that's what is basically putting an end to the monetary reign of these bad guys over us. And once they lose monetary control, they can kiss all their other control goodbye, because that's the linchpin of all their control, is they get to print the money.
There is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
Well, I'm just stunned by this news that the Saudis are now openly pointing the finger at the United States. Of course, they're not yet mentioning Israel, but we have the goods on these people. And just a few of the smoking guns of their heinous crimes on 9/11 include the freefall collapse of World Trade Center Building 7, the statistical impossibility of the BBC reporting about that collapse 25 minutes too early, and lucky Larry Silverstein's multi-billion-dollar insurance payout for acts of terror against those buildings that he got that policy just a few months before 9/11. The litany of evidence of the New World Order's dastardly deeds on 9/11 has been documented, cataloged, and readied for trials, and the true culprits have been identified. All we need now are the trials, Bix, and that's why I started the conversation this way. The Clintons and the Bushes are knee-deep in 9/11.
How dare you?
And the fact that Clinton had the audacity to say, "How dare you?" when he knows exactly what happened on 9/11 speaks to his soullessness and his epic level of criminality. And his wife is even worse.
The good thing about the Clinton family is that it's not only 9/11. We can nail them on, there's 100 different crimes that they've committed, even openly admitted to all the email problems. I mean, even that holds a huge penalty. I mean, Hillary, just on the evidence we have from the emails, and I'm not talking about all the conspiracy stuff, which I believe is absolutely true, and there's plenty of fact to back that up. But just the destroying the emails when you're Secretary of State, completely against the law, and she should be tried for treason. I mean, that's how serious this offense is, and it's openly discussed. And she says, I don't know anything about it, but there's proof up and down the line. So yeah, pick your poison with the Clintons and the Bushes, and you can just go back to so many people. And I do think we're getting to a point where we will have open and honest discussion and trials about what happened in the past. But to get there, it's going to take the crash of the banking system, which I think is on tap for this summer, at the latest this fall, which is when I think the bad guys want it, the good guys want it to happen earlier.
Well, I want to ask you about the 1988 cover of The Economist magazine. Of course, that's a Rothschild publication. But before I do that, I want to talk about the good news, which is these people are scared to death that if Donald Trump gets into the White House, he might actually have a Department of Justice that will enforce the law. He might actually have a State Department that does not engage in criminality. Now, you know that the State Department just announced recently that they can't find any of the emails. They lost all of the emails relating to Hillary and her IT guy who helped set up her private server, and he was over there for 4 years. All those emails have, quote-unquote, vanished. And at the Department of Justice, we see them refusing to indict Hillary Clinton for her crimes. Now, imagine if somebody got into the White House like Donald Trump, who would just allow those agencies to do their job and to enforce the rule of law. We might see these criminals be tried for their crimes against America, the Constitution, and humanity. And I can't think of anything better or more buoying to our human spirit than to watch these people be tried for their crimes.
I agree 100%. And I think that's where we're headed.
Well, you're not alone, because V, the Guerrilla Economist, our mutual friend, he's a cup half full guy, and he just recounted recently in one of his podcasts the list of miserable fails that the New World Order has experienced just over the past decade. And now at the top of the list is that 9/11 is in the wide open. I mean, even Americans who are sheeple people, Bix, who believe the official story hook, line, and sinker, they have no excuse now.
I'm really happy that you especially, because I went back to our 2011, January 2011, our first interview, and you were saying, yeah, nobody thinks the bad guys will ever be taken out. And I was like, no, they will be. And so I'm heartened to hear that you can see and you see these guys being destroyed and not succeeding at everything they do. And now, luckily, it's more obvious than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. I mean, we're both seeing some good news here, and I want to ask you now about the Rothschilds again in their Economist magazine. You've done a lot of research into the 2014, 2015, and the most recent cover of the Economist magazine. Of course, I cite constantly the 1988 cover of the Economist magazine with the phoenix rising from a burning pile of ashes of fiat and a gold medallion around its neck saying 2018 with the cover saying, "Get ready for a world currency." The Rothschilds 30 years ago predicted that the U.S. dollar would then collapse by 2018 and the world would be ushered into a world currency ostensibly under their control. Do you think they're on track for that still? I think they're behind. And even if they were on track, do you think they'll get away with it?
I think they are on track for their plan. I mean, their plans are, from what my contacts have told me, their plans are set in stone, and there's specific timing for everything, and it's all exactly executed. And their plan is to crash the system this fall, and then have a year and a half of hell to make us be begging for the government to take care of us and to return or to go to a gold standard controlled by them. That's the key. Is gold is a world's reserve currency. That it always has been. The key is who controls the gold. And interesting, in that 1988 cover, if you look at the coin, it has a zero with a line through it. It doesn't have a euro on it or a US dollar symbol. It has a zero with a line through it, which I take as representing no one controlling a gold standard by 2018 when they want to put it in. But yeah, that's their plan. My take is we are going to be turning to our government. There is no doubt about it. The amount of chaos that is directly ahead of us, that's our only choice, would be to turn to our government. Otherwise, everything falls apart and we're in a Mad Max world. The big thing, our only hope, is to get a government that is sound and honest and follows the Constitution. That's what we need to change. If we can do that, there's a way to get through this mess. If we don't, we'll either turn to the bad guys to take care of us once again, and they'll control everything with their one world government, or it'll just be a Mad Max world, and we're pretty much screwed all around.
Yeah.
So I think that's why this election is so important, that we get someone or some people in there who are going to look after the people of the United States, look after the preservation of our form of government under the Constitution, and basically give us someone we can turn to for help that is good and not bad.
Yeah, you're familiar with the Never Trump movement?
Well,
because I've come up with one of my
sides.
own. I've come up with one of my own. It's ABH, anyone but Hillary. And, or ABC, anyone but Clinton. And, again, I just want to talk about the Clintons as the crime family they are. Bix, I often say that the Bushes created the Clintons, and they're one and the same. We got the Republican family, the Democratic family, but they both have CIA ties with the CIA drug running in Mena, Arkansas, the body count, the Clinton body count. The Bushes made the Clintons, and the Bushes and the Clintons, I think both families report to these banking families, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, etc. So let me ask you this. On one of these more recent covers of The Economist magazine, why do you think Bill Clinton is featured so prominently?
Yeah, that's amazing, huh? Because he'd been out of the spotlight, but obviously right now he's right back in that spotlight. The Trump campaign is basically turning the spotlight on Hillary and Bill, because they're saying Trump's he's sexist, he hates women. Oh my God, who is the worst human being when it comes to women? Bill Clinton. He's a predator. That guy should have been in jail years ago. And that is coming out now. And you look at The Economist magazine, Alan Greenspan's on the inside cover. That's the amazing thing to me is, obviously a lot of my work covers what Alan Greenspan did with the invention of computer programs for the banking system and all that. But he's been trying to get us back onto a gold standard for years, and in the cover it shows him fading off and all the crash dates that he tried to computer crash the system. So yeah, there's a lot, but the scariest thing in that cover is the inside calendar picture, which shows just massive chaos in something that looks exactly like the Olympics, with arrows going all over the place into a podium with London on it. About
right.
That's just like the Brexit problem. Is there going to be a terrorist attack because of or during the election or the voting to leave the euro? All that stuff is all in that magazine, and it's chaotic and it's crazy. But there's also a sign. This guy who looks
like Chris Duane,
like exactly like Chris Duane, a silver sign that says "Freedom for," and then you can't read what's under it. So does that mean that silver is going to be set free in 2016? I think it does. I think we're primed for it right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's so much esoteric and occult imagery in these Economist covers that it warrants discussion and research, because these things don't happen by accident. None of it happens by accident. It's all orchestrated. Yeah. It's designed. There's marching orders given to the artist. There's sketches done. There's preliminary reviews done. There's final reviews done. And you know as well as anybody, symbols mean more than words. Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
I think Well, I always thought that, yeah, they planned it and they executed it because they said it beforehand. It has to be that way. There's another, another possibility is that they knew about it. They use some of this new technology to look into the future. And there is technology that if you use remote viewing, the government's been using that for years. The Rothschilds have that technology. They can use, if they have the right people and they've been trained properly, they can use it to see into the future. And maybe the economist stuff is more their look into the future and say this is going to happen, and then either making it happen themselves or being there to view it and to benefit off it, to place the right bets on 9/11 against the planes crashing or things like that. That's also a possibility. Either way, it's clear that they have foreknowledge of these events, these huge events that happen. But it's interesting is whether or not they are executing them or whether or not they, obviously these are executed by certain people. But is it the Rothschilds, or are they just benefiting off the ability to see into the future through this new technology?
Yeah. Isn't it funny that so many people we know just in the world at large, the population in general, the majority, the vast majority, really live in this world day to day as children? I mean, they haven't evolved into actual, real formed adults that use critical thinking because they don't know any of this history about which we're speaking. They don't know that the Rothschilds cornered the Bank of England and enriched themselves. They don't know that the Rothschilds were loaning money to kings and to governments to wage war. They don't know the history of the formation of the Federal Reserve and the private banking families behind it. And I've said this before. I always laugh, and so do you, at the Forbes richest people list, which contains guys like Bill Gates, Carlos Slim, and Warren Buffett, all of whom have made their fortunes in one lifetime. These multi-generational banking families that control printing presses have amassed their unimaginable wealth in the trillions of dollars over multiple generations, Bix, and most people have no idea.
I agree. But what scares me more, and we've done our best to expose all of this over the past 10 years, right? What scares me more is that not only do they not know of the past, they're not prepared for the future. Right. We are not prepared to leave the nanny state. I write about this in my new book, is that, yeah, it's great to take out the bad guys, but can we take care of ourselves without them there? That's the thing that really freaks me out these days, because we won't have the infrastructure. We won't have the safety net of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all that. We will have to take care of ourselves. Can we do it? Are we really ready to? Yes, our controllers are horrible people and they do dastardly things, but they still make the system run that we have relied upon. And my take is, yes, we have to get rid of them, because at some point we got to grow up and take care of ourselves. It's not going to be easy. As a matter of fact, it's going to be a whole lot, as hard as it is now, it's going to be a whole lot more difficult after the crash.
Yeah, I worry about that a lot, Bix, and I think you're right. And I pointed to what's going on in Venezuela right now as an example of how bad it could get here, because when people are hungry and when their benefits, their food stamps are cut off, they lose their minds. They're going to lose their minds in these inner cities here in the United States, and there's no better example of that than a recent Mark Dice video in which he highlighted a threat an African-American male was making against Donald Trump, saying that if Trump cuts off his food stamps, he's going to come after Trump. These people are so reliant on the system. So many of the people in the inner cities, so many of the poverty-stricken people, the people that live day to day in poverty, are so dependent on the system and so unknowledgeable and, in fact, ignorant that when this system comes down and those EBT cards are shut off and, God forbid, the cities go dark, it could turn into an Armageddon-like situation. I mean, we're talking Mad Max.
I hate to tell you, it isn't those people that I'm worried about. Everybody is dependent on the system. I mean, they're used to fighting and scraping it out for a living and to feed themselves, either EBT cards or stealing and robbing. What about the everybody else who isn't used to that? When their checking account, savings account, and Visa cards are gone, those are the people who are most vulnerable, because they have no experience. They have experience in the system. As long as the system works, everything's fine and they don't have to learn skills. They don't have to grow their own food. They don't have to learn how to rob, cheat, and steal for money. The lower class people, they do have to. They've been working on their survival skills a whole lot more than the middle class and the rich. But remember, all this is going to go. So where is the skill set? We live in a nanny state. There's no doubt about it. But when you take that away, that's what I'm most afraid of. And the only way out of that, we're going to turn to our government. If we have the right government that helps us through this, there's a possibility we can get through it. If we have the wrong government that says, okay, I'm taking all your rights away and we're going to turn it into a one world government with a one world currency, then we're pretty much screwed all around. So there's a very small, remote possibility that we can get through this and end up in a better place. But that has totally to do with getting a government in place that's going to take care of us, because everybody's going to be turning to the government.
Well, I definitely think it constitutes us getting a government in place that is honorable and will follow the rule of law, as opposed to one that is tyrannical and puppets to the oligarchs, the global oligarchs, the Soroses, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. And the reason I say that is because the Chinese, the Russians, and the rest of this world don't want to see this country spiral into chaos with a criminal government in charge when this country has so many nuclear weapons and is constantly frothing at the mouth to go to new wars.
Here's the problem, and it's an obvious one. If Trump gets in and we're in trouble, you're going to see a revolution overnight. People are so left. I mean, the Bernie Sanders are adamant that if Trump gets in, they're going nuclear. I mean, literally. And I truthfully, I don't blame them. And vice versa. If the Bernie revolution takes hold, the other half of the country will go nuclear.
Well, but let me jump in and say, I do think that as much as people who are knowledgeable about the economy and are anti-socialism, anti-communism, as much as those people don't like Bernie Sanders, everyone despises Hillary Clinton. And I think if Bernie Sanders somehow, which he won't, but if he did get into office, I don't think those on the right would cause riots or do anything less than hope for the best. Whereas the people on the left are vicious, BIX. There are some truly insane social justice warrior nutbags out there. People in the inner cities that have already been threatening Donald Trump openly, threatening to murder him. There are people on the left that I think would start cities on fires and would start chaos. And I don't think we'd see that from people on the right.
Well, you don't see it now because the people on the right are winning. The rich are winning this game right now. So if the tides were turned, the banking system crashes, and we're all equal, you're going to see the rich riot. I mean, they won't be rich.
But I think the caveat there is that I wouldn't describe the middle class as rich. I mean, the middle class, the largest support for Trump, the largest support for Trump right now is coming from the middle class. These are people that are fed up with the downsizing and the offshoring of corporations. They're fed up with being laid off. They're fed up with having their houses go into foreclosure. They're fed up with the criminality and the lies coming out of Hillary Clinton at the State Department and Barack Obama in the White House. So it's not the rich, is it?
Here's the problem and the issue. Right now you've got two opposite extremes. I mean, Trump is an extreme right. Bernie is an extreme left. If either one of those sides, if an extreme comes into power when we have a banking crash, you have total disunity in the United States. And at a time when you need to turn to someone, and half the country will not turn to their current government because it's so left or so right. See, that is the problem. The amount of chaos that we will hit come November because of the economic issues that are literally knocking at our door. If we are not united as a country, and the Ron Paul revolution ran into this head first. Yes, the Republican establishment stopped them. I think the Republicans and Democrats are done after this year. But there was also the problem of the other half of the country that didn't understand Ron's message. And there's the problem of right now we have Trump's message and we have Bernie's message, which is complete. Everybody thinks it's complete opposites. I think there's a lot of overlapping, and neither one of them is an establishment candidate. If they came together and kind of said, okay, we need to heal this half of the country, you heal this half of the country, because everybody will be turning to their government first, and then second, they'll go into revolution mode. If the government is not there representing everybody, meaning the far left and the far right, then you can kiss it all goodbye.
Yeah, the government needs to represent the people. Let's just throw out the right, the left. I mean, you and I both know the right and left is a lie. People need to come together. We need government for the people and by the people. You and I agree on that, and that's the bottom line. And the last thing I want to ask you before we lose you here is I want to talk about the good guys. You talk about the good guys a lot. Many of us have been skeptical that that there is a plan by the good guys to bring down this system on purpose and reintroduce a gold standard. Regardless of all that, let's just talk about the possibility that there are some good guys out there in positions of power. Guys like Roger Stone who are backing Trump and advising Trump. Trump who's talking about the 28 pages. Now we have the Saudis coming out and openly pointing fingers at the U.S. government saying, you people were behind 9/11, not Muslims. And we see some of the generals at the Pentagon standing up against Obama, not following his marching orders. We see some evidence that there are some good guys in power within this governmental structure. You're talking about the collapse coming as early as this fall. What is your take on the good guys saving what's left of this country before it's completely destroyed by the likes of Obama and Hillary Clinton and the Bushes?
Well, we can clearly see that things are heating up on the good guys front as all these, like V talked about, all these plans of the bad guys are falling apart. And people are being exposed and information is being exposed. 9/11 is a key part of that.
And by the way, I want to throw Putin in the mix as well, of course, outing the Pentagon for its bogus war against ISIS in Syria.
Yeah. I mean, everything is being exposed. That is a sign that the good guys are winning. And yes, there have been good guys. They didn't have a lot of power, but they did have some power. And then come after 9/11, that was the kind of the breaking point for these good guys. They said, this is enough of this monetary game that they've been supporting. We're going to shut it down and take out these bad guys. And we can see it now more and more. I mean, more than we did 5 years ago, more than we did 10 years ago. But and everything seems to be quickening. That is the key, because the good guys, they know the time frame of the bad guys. The bad guys' time frame is crash and fall, a year and a half of absolute misery, and then they can implement their one world government, because by then people will be begging for someone to help them. The good guys are saying, we need to crash the system a little before that, but we need to put people in the government that will look after us and go back to the Constitution, because it's the only way to save us from the bad guys and to save us from the chaos that's headed our way.
Yeah, you just nailed it. I mean, we have a guide to get us back to where we need to be.
It's the Constitution. It's not the law.
Yeah.
There are so many laws that have been passed that are completely unconstitutional.
No, that's right.
It's the Constitution. We need to go back to the Constitution.
That's what I was going to say. We have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and for far too long a time, we've had a criminal government that has trampled on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Bush crime family, the Clinton crime family, their CIA puppet Obama, and of course the Rockefellers and Rothschilds at the top of the pyramid. It's time these people are exposed on a global stage, and that's why I'm so grateful that the Saudi press, of course controlled by the Saudi government and House of Saud, is now openly pointing a finger at the U.S. government, saying it was your deep state that caused 9/11, not Muslims, not bin Laden in a cave. And that is important news. We should all be spreading it to the four winds. Bix, thanks so much for your time. What do you got coming next, and tell people about your website?
I've got my fourth book that is just about all this stuff we're talking about right here. I'm just about done. It should come out in mid-June, and it really is it might be my last one. It's a clarion call for the country to unite around the Constitution and around people who were fighting for it, like Trump, like Bernie Sanders, and I know it's hard to even think about it today, but there will be a time when, if those two come together, we can save our country. And ROTHSCHILD'S, still fighting that fight. Come by and check out all the strange stuff I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, check out all the strange stuff, including the dissection and analysis of those Economist magazine covers. It's esoteric, occult, riddled symbology, and Bix has done some great analysis about those covers. Our guest has been Bix WEIR from RoadToRuta.com. Bix, thanks so much.
Thank you, Sean.
My pleasure. And guys, thank you so very much for tuning in and for spreading this information. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And visit us at SGTReport.com for real news and information. The antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless.